Exactly perfect. Hi, my name is Kendra Henderson Freeman, and I'm here with my uncle George Henderson. I am interviewing him based on the end of the agrarian era in the South and the civil rights movement. And so he was born in 1938 and stayed in North Carolina and worked on a farm. So they were still doing farming when he was 9 years old. He worked on the farm to 9 to age 19, um, and he worked about 14 to 16 hours a day. Now, exactly when did you start to school for the first grade?
North
What
Carolina
what
College,
age? No, what age did you start first
seven.
grade?
I started first grade at 7 years old.
And why did you told me why you waited?
I waited until my brother next to me got old enough to go so we could start the school together.
And those schools then, what was the classroom setting like?
We had everybody was in the first grade was in one class.
So you had everyone in one classroom, and they were consist of all black students.
Yes,
So you had that during that time it was segregation in the South,
yes.
correct?
All the schools were segregated.
And how did you get to school?
Walked. We had to walk. The white students had buses picked them up, and we had to walk.
And how many miles was that?
Uh, Depended. I guess about 4 or 5 miles.
So 4 or 5 miles going and coming
Yes,
per day. And so um, that's how the segregation went in the South. You had the white schools, and then you had the schools for the black. And I also see that you had to change schools several times when you were in elementary. What
yeah.
what was happening with what was the reason for that?
First. I went to started out at Smithfield School. I went there for a couple of years,
You went for that
and then they transferred me to Davidson. I had to go to Davidson. There was I don't know, some rule. I don't know what it was about. And I stayed at Davidson for about half a year, and then I came back to Smithfield.
Okay.
And then finally we moved from the area, and then I went to another school, Lighter Grove School.
Okay. And then
And
from there you went to high school.
I went to Davidson. I
Oh, you
went
went to
back to
Davis. You went
elementary
back to
school
the
in
elementary
Davidson.
school in Davison.
Yes, and then left Davidson and went to high school at
Torrance Lytle.
Torrance Light in Huntersville, North Carolina.
And
Yeah.
Torrance Lytle was a all black school and high school. It was the only high school in Huntersville, North Carolina. And it actually stayed open until about 1972, I
Six.
think.
I thought it was 65.
65,
65.
1965
Yeah.
is when it closed. And they still hold that school open for a recreation. The park and recreation is almost
Yeah.
part of it. So part of that school building is still standing
Yeah.
there. And I'm not sure if they've deemed it a historical site, but that is still there.
But I know that there was in the county, Mecklenburg County, there was several schools, J.H. Gunn and Torrance Light High School, and when they closed those schools, they closed all the black schools, and we had to go and they had to go to. I had left
Mm-hmm.
then, but they had to go
To the
white
white
school,
schools.
and I found that all the records that they had of J.H. Gunn, someone saw the records thrown down. They took them from Torrance Light down to J.H. Gunn, and they saw them scattered all over the floor. The records that was that.
So the historical records
Yeah.
of Torrance Lytle, all of the students' records and everything, they were destroyed,
Yeah,
basically. So you have no documentation. They have no, not none per se. There's no documentation, accurate documentation
right,
of all the students that
right.
went to those schools. So they were treated as kind of insignificant.
Yeah,
The black students were.
right.
So this is part of what the civil rights were about, having equal rights. So we're coming up to 1964 when we had the Civil Rights Act. But you left and went to college in
57.
1957,
Yes.
and you left and came to North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah, I stayed there for 4 years, and
You
I
studied
studied physics.
Physics. He is a physics professor. I'll let him talk about that. But let me back up a little bit, because I remember a story.
Yeah.
It was at one point where you were riding a school bus, that somebody had a bus. I don't know if it was a school bus. And the school bus got caught in a ditch.
That's when I was in high school.
That's when you were in
In
high school.
I was riding a school bus.
You were riding the school bus in high school, so we are up to point. You're riding the school bus in high school, and the school bus went over like an embankment, like in a ditch. And what happened? You did something.
Well, I convinced the students that we could push it out. And we got off the bus and pushed it out.
And push it out, but you put people, well, what I was told is that you place people in certain positions on the bus and told the driver to drive out.
Yeah.
And that was a part of your physics.
Yeah.
You just knew that.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So I wanted to throw that story in, because one of your classmates told me that once before. Efert told me that.
Yeah.
And he said that you were a very smart person. So I remember that. So 1957, you went to North Carolina University. And tell us about what was happening with the civil rights movement at that time. What was happening with Greensboro?
During the time I was there, that's when the sit-in started at North Carolina A&T University at Greensboro.
At the Woolworth lunch counter.
So they started sitting it, because they wouldn't serve them, so they sit there, and then the movement spread it to North Carolina Central then, and to Durham we went down to the local Woolworth there and sit at the counter.
Mm-hmm. So you were part of sit-ins at the Woolworth in Durham, North Carolina. And those sit-ins were because, just for the viewers that are looking, because it was still segregation. They would not serve blacks in the South at public restaurants.
Right.
And during that time, most of the Woolworths was your main, one of your main restaurants, if you could believe it or not. That was a store, and it had a lunch counter inside of it.
Yeah.
So you went down there and just took part in the sit-ins.
Yeah.
Okay.
But funny things happened too during that time. I was raised in the country, so there was virtually no segregation. The houses was a long ways apart, and there wasn't a identified community, a real identified community. And I went to Charlotte with naive. Went to Charlotte, and I was at the bus station. I saw the bathroom, and I went on in the bathroom. I went on downstairs. There was 10, 15 urinals, and the white folk were looking at me. Some of them all peed on themselves looking at me. And I didn't know what was going on. I went on upstairs, went on and came back on home. And then that's when my brother told me they had a bathroom for blacks in the bus station. I didn't know that.
You didn't know about it.
And they didn't say nothing. They looked at me with what's this strange? What's he doing in here? But as if to say that. That was the funniest thing ever happened to me.
And that was because in your community, no one was acting.
They were not active.
They,
They weren't active in trying to prevent people from going. That's
right.
right.
Right. I can
Yeah.
understand. I was like that myself going to school. I had no. It was later on when I really realized that there was a difference between white and black. Even
Yeah.
though I started school with whites, I started
Yeah.
in integrated schools. I didn't know that that was an issue because my father, which is your brother,
Yeah.
did not have that in our house. He
Right.
he didn't teach us that.
Right.
Just to get along with everybody. And if
Right.
anybody, he did tell me, if anybody tried to start something with you, defend yourself, but don't
Yeah.
start anything.
Right.
So we grew up in that. So the Civil Rights Act came in 1964, and as a result of that, you're supposed to have equal rights, no discrimination based on
And they
race.
integrated the restaurants. I was working at Virginia State then.
Okay.
I had already graduated working at Virginia State, and one of my colleagues, Dr. Jones, as soon as they passed the 64 civil rights law, which integrated all of, you could go anywhere and eat.
Oh, okay.
We used to go every day, every lunchtime. We'd go find a restaurant that hadn't been serving blacks. Oh, and make them so uncomfortable. We went in one restaurant and sit down beside some white folk, and they got up and moved.
So you wanted to go experience all the restaurants that you were not able to go into prior to 1964.
Just
right?
agonize them. Yeah.
And then, so on your college campus, you formed a group. There was a group that formed, and tell us about what you did with that group.
There was a group formed of 4 colleges: North Carolina College, Durham, and Duke University, University of North Carolina, and North Carolina State. They was still made it. Actually, a student group. We would get together and have sessions. We talk to each other about experiences. And some of the white people said that they had never known any blacks. They would really sit down and talk to any black people. And as their experience, from that experience, they learned that they were just the same. Everybody just the same. It's just that what they had been taught and things how they had been raised. And we all together attended a speech given by Martin Luther King in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
Which was
a great experience
really
to see
yeah.
Dr. King.
Yeah.
You seen him in person?
Yeah,
Wow.
all the students really enjoyed the speech. Rousing speech.
And so you came from, just a little recap, you came from working on a farm and going to an all-blacks elementary school, high school, and going to a North Carolina Central, which is a historical black college, isn't it?
It was all black college then. At that time,
all black colleges, and they now are historical black colleges, which still are in existence. And you went there and went through all of the segregation to integration, and experienced those things in between, not being able to go to certain places, to becoming a professor of Physics.
Yeah,
Teaching at the very, no, not at the high
Virginia.
school you went to, not at the college you went to, but
No,
teaching, where did you teach?
at Virginia State University, Virginia State College. Then it was called,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't integrated at the time when I started working there.
Okay.
It wasn't started. We met some white people that lived in the community, eating. My colleagues and I went out to eat, and this woman said she wanted to go to Virginia State. They wouldn't let her go. A white woman said she wanted to go to Virginia State, and they wouldn't let her go. So the white people wanted to go to Virginia State. It was segregated at that time. If you wanted to go to University of Virginia or or the university in Richmond, the state would pay you. If you wanted to get a master's degree, the state would pay you to go to New York and get a degree. They would pay you way up, transportation up there, and your tuition.
Wait, could we bring that back? Could we bring that part? Let's bring that back.
You have a master's degree. That's what people got, masters and PhDs, but and the state Virginia pays for them.
That is because this is a Commonwealth state.
Yeah.
So different Commonwealth state. Okay, so that was very good that they could do that. And so you taught you were professor of
Physics. Yeah.
And we don't know what that all means.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know another story that you were offered an invitation to NASA.
Yeah, I went to. I worked at NASA for during the summer. I worked at NASA, and I was given an invitation to one of the launches of the launches from Cape Canaveral.
Okay.
And I didn't go. I didn't go because I got sold, gave it to someone else. It cost so much money, and I didn't have. Well,
so you were a hidden figure. Worked at a project at NASA from the farm to college to working college professor to working at being in demand.
Yeah.
And called to work at NASA on a project as a black man.
Yeah.
And so I would say, I'm so proud to be a part of this family and have known you. I'm still knowing you, but to have known you and have been able to spend time with you.
Yeah.
And so I just want to tell you I admire you and congratulations for everything that you've accomplished. It's been great. And thank you for this interview. Did you want to say anything else?
I want to say, the movie, you've heard the movie The Hidden Figures?
Yes.
One of those ladies went to school at Virginia State in our department.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't remember who that was?
They had names.
They had the names in there.
They didn't use their real names in the movie.
Oh, they didn't use their real names, so you can't say that.
Christine Darden was her name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
she came over in our department to get help with math.
Oh, she was one of the mathematicians.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, she was a mathematician, yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
All right, you got a lot of hidden stories there. I'm going to have to find out more about that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this time. And so he's come through the agrarian end of the agrarian era, actually. But the South was a little bit slower with all of that process.
Yeah.
And as the North was moving, as in the United States, the North was moving a little bit more advanced on those things. And so they were still doing the agrarian era down there and having people work on farms and that kind of thing, and not giving people the education that they really needed. So he came through that up to the college, the civil rights movement, where blacks start getting rights, having rights to be able to go into restaurants, being able to vote, being able to actually be teachers, go to
Yeah.
school, go to college,
Yeah.
and be able to be educators. And from that to actually teaching in a university and empowering other students
Right.
to go out in the world. So he's produced a lot of other teachers, professors, and other professionals. So that is the end of our presentation. And thank you so very much for this time.
Right.